Okay, well, Nadine, I'm going to go ahead and let you take the floor. Thank you so much for joining us today. And you can tell us all about Boost Oregon.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be with you all today. I had hoped to be with you in person when we originally planned this months ago, but here we are. It's a whole new world, but I really appreciate learning about the wonderful works you all are doing. It's amazing to hear what good you're doing for the community. So thank you. Again, my name is Nadine. I'm the founding executive director of Boost Oregon. Just out of curiosity, how many of you have heard of Boost before? You can put your hand up or a thumb. Okay, good. I'm glad we'll get a chance to tell a lot more folks about us. I have a presentation for you over PowerPoint, and I'm planning to go about 20 minutes. Does that sound right, Tim?
Yeah, 20 minutes.
Okay.
If you need a little bit more, you can take it.
Great, thank you. So let's see. Get this set up. Okay, are you seeing my opening slide? Great, thank you, Bryce. Boost Oregon, who are we? We are a parent-led, independent, nonprofit organization that educates parents and the general public about the safety and benefits of childhood vaccines. Our mission is to minimize vaccine-preventable diseases in Oregon through community education and peer advocacy. In short, we are looking for informed parents and healthy kids. I just want to pause a moment on some of these aspects about our organization. First and foremost, we are parent-led. My experiences as a parent led me to create this organization. All of our board members are parents themselves. All of our educators are parents and grandparents. We come at this because we love children, we care about children's health, and we're doing it from the perspective of a parent and wanting to take care of our kids. We are an independent organization. We are not part of a larger health system or any other community group. We are a standalone organization, and we're a nonprofit. We are funded entirely by individual donors and community foundations. We do not accept donations of any kind from pharmaceutical companies. And our focus is education. We really want people to make decisions for their children's health based on accurate, evidence-based information. A little bit about our history. This is a picture of me and my kids about 4 years ago. Hard to believe that little baby is a very energetic, more than a toddler now, almost 4 years old. My background is not in medicine or public health. I was trained as a lawyer. I was working as a litigator here in Portland. I was a class action litigator, so I represented groups of individuals against large corporations like banks and insurance companies. It was interesting work. It aligned with my values of wanting to hold powerful entities accountable and making sure that people are treated fairly. And I didn't give much thought to this issue at all. And then I was pregnant with my daughter, my first child. And friends of mine with whom I'd been socializing for years, we worked out at the gym together and we went for brunch every month or so. They started asking me what my vaccine plan was now that I was pregnant. And this question really surprised me. And I thought, vaccine plan, I don't know. I'm gonna do what the doctor says to do. Why? What are your plans? What do you do? And what I learned was that some of them refused vaccines altogether. Others delayed vaccines because they didn't like the recommended schedule. They thought it was too many vaccines. They would, selectively choose which ones to take. And I realized that this issue is a lot thornier than I was aware of beforehand. And after those conversations, I then went home and went to trusty Dr. Google, and I started Googling what my friends' concerns had been. And what I now know is called confirmation bias, when you find information that confirms what you've already been told or what you may believe. I was able to find online a lot of information that corroborated what my friends had been telling me. And so it got me really anxious, and it made me think, you know, we need to talk about this. We need to figure out what our vaccine plan is going to be for our child. And when I spoke to our pediatrician about it, he was very quick to talk to us about how the recommended schedule is tested and monitored, and it's what he did for his kids. It's what he recommends for all of his patients. And so we were able to take that information and feel good about the decision to immunize our children on schedule. Fast forward a year later, my daughter gets her measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, MMR, and I take her on an airplane a few days later to visit my parents who live out of state. And I received an alert on my phone that someone with measles had walked through PDX airport. So that made me totally panicked, worrying about whether we had been exposed to measles and if my daughter was going to be at risk. Thankfully, she was fine, but it really hammered home for me that this is not just an individual decision that impacts my own family. The decisions that we make impact others as well. And when I started digging deeper and finding out why parents were refusing vaccines, I saw that there was a real lack of parents' voices. The vaccine topic has become so controversial and heated, and even though the majority of Oregonians are pro-vaccine and vaccinate their children, people don't talk about it. So that's where Boost Oregon came from. We want to empower parents to feel good about their children's vaccines and about information out there. So our philosophy is to disrupt this dangerous cycle of misinformation. What I heard from my friends and I was able to confirm online, I'm not unique in this. This is happening all the time. And it happens with other issues as well. It's not just vaccines. And so how do we disrupt this dangerous cycle? First and foremost, and this belief underlies everything we do, parents want to make the best possible decisions for their children's health. No one refuses a vaccine or chooses to delay because they want to harm their child or they want to put the greater community at risk. They really truly believe that's the best health decision for their family. So we need to make sure that they're making decisions on accurate information. And to that, what we found, and again, what our second core belief, if you give parents evidence-based information without fear or degradation, they will make the best decisions for their families. Now, this doesn't mean that a parent who feels nervous and anxious about her child's vaccines, when she comes to you, you give her a stack of data or statistics, or talking about the numbers of how many millions of children have been vaccinated without any problems over so many years. You can't answer an emotion with fact. You have to answer an emotion with emotion. Supposedly Will Rogers says, people need to know that you care before they care what you know. And that's very true with the vaccine decision for parents. It's very much an emotional decision, and it's something that they need to feel heard and understood before they can receive the scientific data. Why do parents hesitate to vaccinate? I have a whole other hour-long talk on this, and so maybe we can go into that another time. But to give you a quick summary, these are the three main reasons that we've discerned. First, our cognitive biases, essentially anything that messes with our decision-making. There are hundreds of them out there. Confirmation bias, as I discussed earlier, is one. Another is correlation and causation. Just because two things happen in a similar window of time does not mean that one caused the other to happen. Second, internalized misinformation. For years, there's been an anti-vaccine sentiment in the media, in popular culture, especially on social media the last decade or so. And whether or not parents are looking for vaccine information at those times, those messages have been coming through. I know I was a teenager when Jenny McCarthy rose to popularity. She's a model actress who in the late 90s claimed that vaccines caused her son's autism. She has since come out and said her son actually doesn't have autism, he has a different condition, but she still continues to play a role in the anti-vaccine movement. So, you know, even without absorbing that, I just knew that messaging, you know, as I grew older and when I became a parent, you know, the thought was, oh, well, you know, I've heard somewhere that MMR causes autism. Is there any basis to that? So, you know, we're all susceptible to taking in that misinformation. And then third is a miscalculation of risk. Again, parents are trying to make the best decisions for their children. For a lot of parents in Oregon in 2020, where they haven't seen vaccine preventable diseases, they often think that the risk from the vaccine must be greater than the risk of catching the disease. And this is very much a generational thing. I know when I speak to my parents and people of their generation, they knew kids with polio. They you know, knew kids who had terrible cases of measles. Unfortunately, last year here in Oregon, we saw measles come back, and that was scary. But generally, parents have not seen or experienced these diseases themselves. And so the assumption is that the vaccines have to be riskier than the actual risk of catching these diseases. So how do we do this work? We are focused on education. We want parents and the public to be educated about vaccines. First and foremost, we educate parents directly. Second, we support medical providers. And third, we encourage parent advocates. And here's some details about each of those. For educating parents, we have a fabulous website, boostoregon.org. Please take a visit after this talk today. Check it out. We have a common concerns section that just kind of gives nice short answers to some of the things we hear the most from parents. We have a blog which we are constantly updating. The last couple months, it's been mostly COVID-related resources. We share parents' stories. There's really been a lack of parents' stories in terms of the immunization public health world. I think for far too long, public health and folks in medicine and science thought that the data should speak for themselves, and that as long as people see these statistics and these graphs that show how these diseases no longer occur at the rates that they used to occur before vaccines, that should be enough. The truth is that people's stories really resonate and stay with the people listening. And so it's important to share our stories about why we choose to immunize, about why immunization is important to us. We have a wonderful Parents Guide to Vaccines, which is a 32-page booklet filled with such detailed explanations about how vaccines work, what's in them, attacking some of the myths about vaccines. The content of that is available for free on our website. We have printed copies available for purchase. And right now it's available in 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Russian. And the real cornerstone of our parent education are our community workshops. These are free 2-hour sessions where a pediatrician leads a presentation about vaccines, talks, the ins and outs about how they work, how they're monitored, why we know they're safe, and it really addresses parents' questions. These have been incredibly successful. Obviously, during the last few months, we've moved them to be virtual workshops. We have one coming up on June 16th. You're welcome to attend if you are interested. Please sign up on our website. They're really fun, engaging conversations about immunizations, and I learn something new every time. Ultimately, I think one reason those workshops are so effective is that these are our motives right here. We have no agenda other than to answer parents' questions. We don't tell parents what to do. We really listen to them and we provide evidence-based information. And there's no incentive, financial or otherwise, to us if a family that attends a workshop then chooses to vaccinate their child. We just want parents to make decisions based on accurate information. In terms of supporting medical providers, we have all the written resources that I described earlier, which are helpful for doctors, medical assistants, nurses, really anyone who deals with vaccine hesitant patients. We also have a specific medical providers guide, and we do seminars where we teach providers on how to speak effectively with vaccine hesitant parents. It was really shocking to me when I learned that in medical schools, maybe students get 1 to 2 days of worth of education about vaccines. And it's really just about the science of vaccines and the scheduling of it and the administration of it. It's nothing about communicating why vaccines are important or how to have difficult conversations with parents. So we're trying to fill in that gap and provide that training and experience for providers so that they can be more confident in their practices. And third, we encourage parent advocates. The best people to, talk about vaccines are the ones in our communities, the ones in our schools, the ones in our neighborhoods. And so we encourage parents and grandparents to be loud and proud about their decision to immunize themselves and their families. Ultimately, we want to normalize the conversation. It's become such a heated subject that most people have decided to just be silent and not engage. And that's been really dangerous, and it's given a lot of force to the anti-vaccine lobby. So this is something that, if you support vaccines, please talk about it. Talk to your friends and family about why you feel that way, and share your stories with us at Boost. We rely a lot on social media and peer education to get those messages across. And we also assist parents with local campaigns that they want to do within their neighborhoods and schools to get the word out that immunizations are important and to stay up to date. Ultimately, at Boost Oregon, our overarching goal is to really change the culture around immunizations. There is so much fear around them. And parents, it's become such a fear-ridden, anxiety-ridden choice for parents. We want to take that away. And ultimately, we want parents to recognize immunization as an act of love. Immunizing your child is the best shot we have at giving them a long and healthy life. We know that vaccines are recently. How has the recent pandemic, the current pandemic, I should say, how is that impacting our work? And is this making people who declined vaccines in the past to change their mind? Are they choosing to vaccinate now? The truth is, I don't know. I've heard some anecdotal stories about parents that maybe questioned vaccines that are now feeling a little nervous about having made those decisions. Online and in various media, I've seen that a lot of folks in the anti-vaccine movement have just dug their heels in further, and they've already started coordinating campaigns against any sort of possible COVID-19 vaccine. So that's pretty frightening. Ultimately, our work is more important than ever. The truth is, you'll hear this from scientific and public health experts, life will not return to the normal that we knew before this pandemic hit until there's a vaccine and until that vaccine is administered widely. So it's not just, that the vaccine exists, it actually has to be accessible. And so hopefully when that time comes, most Oregonians will take it, and that way we can get out of, this current situation. But that's going to take a lot of education on behalf of everyone who cares about public health. So Boost Oregon will be very much involved in those efforts. There's another crisis underway right now, which has started to get some attention nationally in the press. But I just saw some data out of Oregon that was really disturbing. Because of the pandemic and people being fearful to go to their regular doctor's visits, a lot of children are missing their regularly scheduled vaccines. This means in Oregon that thousands of children are falling behind in their measles vaccines, whooping cough, you name it. All the childhood immunizations, which prevent against 14 different diseases, kids are falling behind. Across the state, it varies a little bit by counties, but the data I saw earlier this week, and I know it's on the Oregon Health Authority website, but it was anywhere between a 30% to a 90% drop, depending on the vaccine. So the fear is that when we get through this pandemic, there's a strong possibility that another outbreak of a different vaccine preventable disease could likely occur. And the fact that we just had a measles outbreak last year makes this, not outside the realm of possibility. So that's something else that we're working on, and we're trying to do a lot of outreach and education about making sure parents show up to their well visits and keep their kids up to date with their immunizations. So if Boost Oregon interests you, if this is an organization that speaks to what you care about, children, health, public health, please help us. We are very much a grassroots organization. We depend on the strength of volunteers. Just talk about why you immunize and be vocal and proud of it. If you're on social media, raise your voices on social media as well as in person, or I guess nowadays over Zoom. Volunteer with us. We have a form on our website you can fill out, and so whatever your interests or skill sets are, I'd love to match you with something that feels appropriate. Please spread the word about Boost Oregon. Too many people don't know about us, and so I want to make sure that parents know we're here to help them with any questions they have, that medical providers know that we're here to support them and to assist them in treating their patients in whatever ways we can. And follow us on social media. We are growing our following, but the best way to get information out is by increasing those numbers. So please help us out. And finally, please consider making a donation. We, again, are funded by individual donations, people just like you, parents, grandparents, concerned citizens who care about our state's children and our state's health. And especially, in this tough times, I know a lot of people are hurting economically, a lot of organizations are hurting economically. We're really uniquely positioned to make a tangible difference in the pandemic. We will be here to educate folks about a vaccine when it becomes available. And right now we're helping people keep up with their immunizations, as well as providing different resources for dealing with the current issues with COVID right now, and issues that come up with kids. We've been doing a lot of sort of mental health and resources for supporting our children during this tough time. So here's where you can find us. Please check us out online, follow us on social media, and thank you so much. I'm happy to take questions if there's time.
Okay, thank you, Nadine. Anybody have any questions for Nadine?
Yeah, I have a couple actually. First of all, you say that you're a nonprofit. What is your nonprofit classification?
We are a 501c3.
Okay, so it is a charitable donation one. That's
Yes.
I'm the treasurer of the club, so I know the difference between the 501c's, whether or not they're 3, 5, 6, 8, whatever. So
Sure.
now the other question I had, you brought up the issue of the fact that the kids are being sequestered because of the COVID-19. A lot of things that I've heard about are that the kids would probably be our best immunity against the COVID-19 if they were allowed to be back at school, because they are the least vulnerable of all of the society and would lead to herd immunity, which is the whole idea of the vaccine. So is it not actually hurting us to have the kids out of school?
That's a great question. And I think what people what scientists and everything, and I'm speaking from what I've read. I don't have any special knowledge on this, but There's still too many unknowns about how exactly this disease impacts children. There's been some scary news that came out this past week about subsequent diseases and conditions that are being seen in child patients of COVID-19. So after the child appears to recover or not have been very much affected by the disease, then are having some really serious health issues after that, including problems with the heart and things that look similar to Kawasaki disease. So there's a lot of unknown questions there. And I think the idea of herd immunity by letting the disease run, in the general population, which is what would happen if kids were out there, the most vulnerable in our communities would be impacted again. And we would see a lot higher rates of hospitalizations and of deaths. And I think, from a public health perspective, you want to minimize those things. And so that is why, that people have not opted to let the disease just spread in the wild in that way.
And the follow-up on that would be, if once they develop the vaccine, which they're talking about doing very quickly, would that not be a similar concern with the vaccine because of the fact that it is the immune system of the child overreacting? Is that not a possibility with a vaccine for the child to overreact again with the vaccine?
I suppose anything's a possibility, and I do think that the fast-tracked way of these vaccines, I'm watching and listening to people who've been in vaccine science for years, and everyone seems to think that the idea that we'll have a vaccine within 12 to 18 months is way too fast. I think that we have some great systems in place here to ensure that when a vaccine is brought to the general market, that it is going to be safe. And I think it's important that it continues to be that way. We most certainly don't want to put a vaccine on the market and encourage people to take it if it causes real risks and problems. So I think in terms of overreaction, some of those, sometimes other children's vaccines are accused of that. And it's this idea that kids' immune systems can't handle vaccines or can't handle the number of antigens in them. I don't know if that's exactly what you're referring to, but generally that's quite a myth. Our bodies, and children especially, who are crawling on the floor and playing in the dirt, our bodies encounter so many, thousands of different organisms on a daily basis. Our immune systems can actually handle a lot more antigens than what is in the vaccines. And vaccine science has improved so much that the number of antigens in children's vaccines today is way lower than it was for children in the 60s or earlier. One of our medical educators has a great graph, and I don't want to give you the wrong numbers, but essentially he compares when he was a child and he was vaccinated, and at the time I think he was only vaccinated for about 4 or 5 different childhood diseases. The number of antigens in those vaccines was a few thousand. Now, for 14 different diseases, the number of antigens total in the entire recommended children's schedule is about 150. So the science has really improved over time, and my hope is that a COVID-19 vaccine will be just as effective and as safe as the other children's vaccines on the market now. But which again, you can't rush the science, and so we have to be patient.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Definitely. Any other questions? I think we've about run out of time here. Well, thank you so much, Nadine. Really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you.
Some great information.
I appreciate the opportunity.
And somewhat timely. So best of luck to you, and thanks again.